once you understand what these tools can do, it's not that it finishes your work faster for you. You now have an infinite backlog because there's never an end to the work because you can do pretty much anything. So that backlog that you had, like you're not like, oh, well, I finished that thing. You can always do more because these tools can do more for you.
Welcome to Content Kingdom. This is your backstage pass to the people, tools, and the trends shaping the future of content marketing.
And welcome to another episode of Content Kingdom, brought to you by Content Lion. I am your host, David G. Ewing, and with me from Mighty and True is Kevin Kerner. Kevin, thank you for being on the show. It's great to have you today.
Yeah, great to be here, David. Thanks for having me.
You know, Mighty and True just sounds like something that ought to have its own jingle, you know, like Mighty and True, you know, something like that. And you see it on TV.
My kids have made up a jingle for Mighty and True. It's hilarious. Yeah. So we do it all the time.
Is it like kind of heroic and like, yeah, that's pretty nice. So, so anyway, for all of the guests that are listening to this, I want to thank you. Kevin, do you have any idea how many hours of podcast content is released every day?
Gosh, hours? I don't know, millions.
I had AI do an estimate for me today based on some studies and some research, just because I was curious. It turns out that there's about 30,000 hours of content released every day into the content world. Yeah, it's like, that's a number I can imagine. 30,000 hours.
We're just piling another 30, 45 minutes on top of that stack.
Yes. And so, dear listener who's listening to this, you are picking this
doing your part.
30,000 hours you could have been picking today that got released. And so thank you.
But this would be at the very top of that stack.
The creme de la creme right here on Content Kingdom. That's it. So,
right.
All right. So Kevin, Mighty and True, this is a really interesting company and something that before we got started that I was talking about, it's really fascinating to me. So maybe you can tell everybody just a little bit about the origin and where you came from and how this came to be, because you've been at this for about a decade.
Yeah, I'd love
right?
to. And thanks again for having me. This is really fun to do. I have my own podcast, as you know, so it's always fun to be on this side. It's so much easier.
Yeah.
I've always been in the tech industry. I started my career at a small marketing organization in Austin here. It's called Select Marketing, but I worked at AMD at the Advanced Micro Devices. So they had me inside the AMD department, and I sort of fell in love with tech and B2B, and I've always been kind of technical and a builder. But that was a marketing firm, and we got bought by another larger marketing firm. So it was called Hart Hanks, and then I ended up growing in that company and ran the tech vertical for them for a lot of years, and then went to Omnicom, and then came back when they wanted me to start a agency for them. So I came back to Hart Hanks. I ran a agency that they had purchased an agency in the UK, and it was very small, and they wanted to launch that same brand here in the US. And so I launched that brand for them. And that was great. It grew to be a pretty big agency. I mean, I had the Hart Hanks sales organization and all the infrastructure, and they had a bunch of tech clients that I could leverage. And so I won't say it was easy to grow from just me to a bunch of people, but we got it up to about 160 people, and maybe a little less than that, but across many locations. And it was good. And so I was like, I think I can, at one point about 11 years ago, I was like, I think I can do this myself. And so I started Mighty and True. And I can tell you, it's a lot harder spending your own money to do this than spending someone else's money. I was thinking, if I was back at Hart Hanks, knowing what I know now, I'd be yelling at my boss that I need more resource. I got to get more resources. I got to do more things. But, and then so Mighty and True, so we focus on the tech industry, and we're a growth advisory company for tech CMOs and leadership teams inside of tech companies. We work with sort of mid-sized to larger tech companies. And we're an advisor because if you're a CMO in a tech company right now, it's more difficult than ever. You've got your board and your execs coming at you for more growth. They also have an expectation that you grow faster and with less staff because of this AI thing. And so and it's not that usually they need advice on the core strategies they need to do because they're smart. They know what they need to do. But inside of each of those strategies, there's usually things they just can't get to because there's just too much. They have a smaller staff now, maybe less budget. And so we come in as an advisor and say, okay, for those things that you're stuck, let us figure out how to unstick them. And so we have an advisory service. We have a marketing side of the business that actually runs these experiments to unstick these things. And then we have a growth system side, which is that as a systems building, sort of AI building function that helps build AI and automation into things that these companies do. So it's really fun. It's a great, having done all this in spreadsheets like you and blank pages of copy or whatever that we're creating, it's just such a wonderful time to be alive. I'm kind of sad I'm at the end of my career that I won't be able to do this longer because it's just such a fun time to do it right now. It's crazy.
Come on, Kevin, with AI, we're going to live forever now. So,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
you're just getting your career started. So am I,
That's
buddy.
true.
Yeah, you have a really cool title that you list on your site, which is CEO and Chief Systems Builder. And for
Mhm,
a company in marketing, the Chief Systems Builder thing, I do think sets you apart.
mhm.
And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you bring systems to, especially a tech company. How do you bring systems to a tech company, and what do you mean by systems?
Yeah, that's great question. I wasn't always a systems builder. When I first started Mighty and True, I kind of did all the things. I just wanted to do all the cool things there were. And so we did some crazy, we worked way too scattered in terms of the type of work that we were doing. And so inside of each one of those pieces of work, we didn't really have systems for anything. And by systems, I mean a way of working, a process, a documented standard operating procedures for anything. And when you think about a business, even a business has to have a system to guide what it actually is. Like there has to be a strategic system to say, this is the business that we're in, and these are the things we're going to do. And so I had to learn the hard way that I had to learn the hard way that I needed to build systems to build a business. And it's even that way inside marketing teams. Like marketing teams need systems to run. It can't be a Wild West, create this one day and create this the next day. So the education I got in that was when I first started Mighty and True, as I said, we were kind of doing all the things. It got really tough. It was a very difficult business to be in. Our people weren't happy, wasn't very scalable. It just wasn't a business that you would want to run forever. And so I was so miserable at the time. About 8 years in, I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I basically took the business from around, we probably had close to 30 people with contractors as well, and customers and stuff. I took that business down to just myself. I took it back down to the kind of roots. I kept a few customers, but I got some education around what business systems are. And so I read E-Myth, which is I guess it's a fable about this person who runs this business that's miserable, and they end up putting all these systems in place, starting with what type of business they need to be in, all the way through the systems that you need to build to run a business. And then I read Traction, and then I implemented the EOS, and then I read another great book called Rocket Fuel, which basically lets you as a CEO or leader settle into either one of two roles. You're either a visionary or you're an integrator. And a visionary, you can't. It's really hard to be both. And so, as a visionary, you're kind of set the tone for the business and really good at sort of visionary type things. As an integrator, you're really good at taking that vision and implementing it. And so, that implementation part of the integrator role is what builds all the systems that actually runs the company. So, we have those systems at Mighty and True, but for our customers, marketing is working with agencies certainly is not easy. And then sometimes they're in the same boat. They're like, I'm miserable. We don't have any way to run things. And so we help implement these systems at these businesses. I mean, we do marketing, like we do growth marketing for them. But as part of that delivery, we build systems to make it very easy to both work with us and work inside their own companies. A long answer.
This isn't an area that I thought we were going to go into, but now that we're here, I'm super excited about this because, EOS is something that I absolutely love. And I didn't even realize I was missing it until I saw what it was and was like, oh my God, where's this been all my life? Right. And, Gino Wickman, the guy who wrote Traction and created Entrepreneur Operating System. I mean, what a genius that guy is. He's out of Entrepreneurs Organization Detroit. And I belong to EO Austin. And I'll tell you, from coast to coast and around the world, that book has probably produced, I don't know how many trillions of dollars of small business growth and operational efficiency, because
100%.
I mean, it's just amazing. And the thing is that I felt like anytime I was taking away from operating in the business to work on the business, the way he describes in that book, was sort of like a guilty pleasure. Like, yeah, I guess I'm doing this for the future. I
Yeah,
didn't
right.
realize that just how fundamental it was. So it's fascinating. You cut the business back down to you took it down to the studs and
Yeah,
rebuilt it. So let me ask
yeah.
you the $1 million question though. Are you a visionary or are you an integrator?
I'm a visionary, 100%,
You're a visionary.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay. So if you're a visionary,
I can do the stuff, I can do the integrator,
yeah.
but and the great thing about the rocket fuel book is that that takes you through questions that try to dial you in at what you
Yeah.
are, but it's very unique that someone can run a big business or get to a large business and be both of those things. And if
So
they do, they usually have an integrator somewhere behind them that they just don't
yeah,
call an integrator.
I mean, I feel like I'm a visionary too, from the litmus test and rocket fuel, and I'm blessed to have a great integrator as my co-founder on Content Line and my partner at Motive. But one of the funny things is what you're doing at Mighty and True is you're coming in and do you feel like sometimes you're acting as like the integrator for the marketing department? Like, is that part
Mm,
of your
yeah.
service, is to like kind of bring and tie together and like make everything, fit so that marketing works with sales and product and all the other groups in the company? Like,
Yeah.
do you see that as part of what you do, or am I off the mark on that one?
Yeah, I mean, we build unseen systems on our side to make it very easy for customers to work with us. Like I don't want to get salesy here, but we have a internal tool called Flow, which is basically a way of working. It's basically a philosophy, but it's also a system that we built, like a technology that we built that helps the pipeline work between the agency customer, the end customer, and us. And it automates that process to make it very simple. Things that would always like make customers uncomfortable or maybe even not happy a service provider. Things like knowing where a project stands, being able to proof stuff online without having to like look at a manually like print out something. Milestones, chat. It's all the things that make that easy. So those are the unseen systems that we built. That when you're a client and you work with a service provider, it just feels a lot easier. And then inside the work that we're doing for customers, sometimes they will want to get to an end goal, but they won't have a framework to get there. And so we'll build that framework. We'll use one of our frameworks to build that framework into their marketing organization and then run the things for them, or we'll run it for them. And then there are now like real systems, technology systems. Like a good example is we are, landing page design and development. Well, that's now all automated through AI for us. But one of the headaches for a client is to take an HTML file and then get it into like Pardot or something. And so we will build systems for them that we use ourselves, or we can give it to them in a GitHub repo that converts HTML to Pardot code. And all they need to do is just drop the Pardot code into their Pardot instance. And so there are like technical systems that we can build to allow them to get work done, faster and easier.
Got it. And that kind of brings us to something that I wanted to talk to you about is, it's on everybody's mind. AI is all over the place. And, as I watch people using AI, it seems like there are two camps that I'm seeing, right? One camp is people who are just like thrashing all over the place, right? They're just they hop on Claude code, they make something, they push it out, and then it sort of gets used for a few days, or it's just like some kind of like neat little trinket, and then it just kind of gets tossed aside, and then they go make something else, right? And they've just got this pile of trinkets all over the place, and none of it is cohesive. The other side of this is I've seen people who are just way overthinking things and haven't made a move because they're like, well, we haven't come up with the committee yet that hasn't decided on the thing, and it's like you guys are falling behind, and it doesn't seem like there's any middle ground, right? Which is like building highly effective, useful, and cohesive systems that fit with the rest of the company and just kind of like come in. And I think that's what we're all looking for. And I feel like you've got some ideas and some things to say about that. So maybe you could maybe share a little perspective on like, how do you find the middle ground, or what do you see in that?
Yeah, 100%. Like that's so true. It's like, and frankly, a year ago, let's say, when Claude Code was getting much better, we did some of the same stuff. We built things that were, not usable or experiments. And I think some of that was good, but just to get your head in the game. But then there needed to be a framework and a system to actually, figure out what the right things are to build. So the way we think about an operating model for AI in marketing for us and our customers, it's you can look at operational AI for us, which is like scale and speed and margin. Like where can we get faster production, fewer manual handoffs, right? There's that type of stuff. And then there's performance AI, which are things like smarter strategy, better decisions, better work, the strategic part that gets better performance. So there's operational stuff that's efficiency, and then there's performance stuff. We try to bucket things into those two, and then externally for our customers on the operational side, we might create productized services. We are creating productized services, I should say, that are AI infused, and we deliver them. We can deliver things just faster and cheaper. So it's just like operational. We're using this thing for you, Mr. Customer. This will happen. It used to take a month. Now it takes a day. Just boom. And that's really good stuff because it's faster for them. It's a great quality, and it's just, less expensive. And then there's
So can you give me
performance.
an example?
Yeah.
I need to hear an example of that, because that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah. Let's say web design skill, both for a landing page or for a full website. We have an intake process that's pretty simple. Client can read a transcript or read a intake document into a transcript. We have them read it for let's say 60-minute session where they're literally just transcribing, or we have multiple people at the company, product, marketing, leadership, talk into a video. We don't want to see them. We don't want to talk to them. They just talk into a video around a script. We take that output and we can run it through a series of 5 skills. A strategy skill that it's like, let's say web strategy, a persona skill that then links up the personas to that strategy, an IA and content skill that now creates the IA from that strategy, a web inventory. So if we have access to Search Console and GA, it will inventory all the web pages against that strategy and tell you which pages to keep, redesign, or remove. And then SEO, it does all the SEO things, include redirect strategy and all that stuff. Once you get those transcripts, you can run those skills, and anyone could create these skills, but we've created some and refined them over the year, and it will output that strategy with some gates, that client has to approve them, but it'll run the skill within 2 minutes. And the output, we were just looking some this morning. The output is amazing because what AI can do really well is it can take all that unstructured input from many people, and it can find the connections in all that to build the actual strategy. That strategy service, let's say, for a traditional like web build, would take months and meetings and presentations and just all the things. And these are things that we can run in literally 2 minutes, and they're better. And a lot of people will be like, "Nah, you're just AI slop." No, these are better strategies than any human could come up with, because you can't hold all this information in your head. It's impossible. So the documents that it outputs are very usable inside of Claude Code for build process. So they'll create a lot of content, almost so much content that you can't really review it all. But then that content is received downstream by more skills that actually build stuff. That's a great example of used to take, I don't know, I just talked to a friend the other day who they had a big company, it's a giant fintech company, and they rebuilt their website, and it took them, I don't know, 3 years because it was all the legalese stuff. But they paid over $1.5 million for the site. And I look at the site and I'm like, oh, nope.
Yeah,
Not
watered
the right
down.
thing to do. And it's watered down because of the the legal stuff, but it doesn't take that long to do this stuff anymore. And so people need to think about leveraging systems. You wouldn't just want to build any skills. You'd want to build a system to build skills, build the right ones. And then you have to build that pipeline all the way down through design and dev and review and tech. But you
Yeah.
can do that now in weeks versus months or years. So that's a great
Yeah.
example of like these things are going to get faster and cheaper.
Yeah. So you look at AI then as, okay, how are we going to do it faster? How are we going to do it more efficiently? That's kind of like one category. And the other category is, how can we improve the quality? How can we improve
Yeah.
the insight and intel? And so we're just better. So it's either it's cheaper or better or both is really what
Yeah.
you're looking for. So
That's right.
got it. So why do you think so many people screw this up? Because right now it seems like we're still in the trinkets and trash phase. And what do you think is missing?
I mean, I think some of it's because of the tool set that's out there. Like you have, if you use Claude, for example, or Codex, if you have Claude, you've got Claude AI, which people are most comfortable in, which is just chat with something. But they don't even use a lot. They haven't yet tested like more advanced things like projects and skills. They're not systematizing how they think. They're just prompting. And so that's a
Hmm.
big thing. And I think the interface to some degree does that because we're all used to just chatting, and you can't just chat or prompt your way through this stuff. And then Claude has dispatch and co-work, which is better because now you can be in that interface and it will allow you to actually interact with documents and you can interact with the web through computer use. But really, to get this stuff systematized and built correctly, you have to be in you have to be in a harness, a coding agent. And it sounds real
Hmm.
scary. And I have a Substack, a series on the Substack that's called CMOs as builders. Because I feel really strongly that if you're a leader today, you have to be in these tools and you can't just be in the chat window. You have to literally be in a coding harness doing the things. It's primarily just to know what the capabilities are, because once you see the capabilities, you can't unsee it. It's just that's when the AI psychosis can possibly take over, because you start to see. I listened to a podcast the other day about once you understand what these tools can do, it's not that it finishes your work faster for you. You now have an infinite backlog because there's never an end to the work, because you can do pretty much anything. So that backlog that you had, like you're not like, oh, well, I finished that thing. You can always do more because these tools can do more for you. I think
Yeah, I
people
feel
need
like
to
I'm
be,
just going down the rabbit hole so many
yeah,
times where it's like, I'll think about a project and then I'll think about a project that's foundational to that project. And then I'll think about something that's even more
yeah,
foundational to that. Before you know it, I'm
yeah,
5 levels deep. And whatever that dumb thing is that I wanted to do at the tip of the iceberg has now resulted in me making like this huge foundational commitment
giant,
to all these
right?
things. And sometimes I wonder, like, have I just lost it? Am I down here with the Mad Hatter, just like losing my
Well,
mind
we
doing
do.
something
So
that is,
here's another great thing. I didn't answer this part of the question, but that you asked before. But so we built this. Let's say the what example I gave you is web. You've got this infinite backlog thing that everyone's dealing with. Like once you get in the tools, you're like, I can build anything, a new feature. I got to do it. So we have this system here that we built it's really working well for us. So through EOS we do initiatives. So we name the initiatives in the quarter that we're going to do, and we do those initiatives for the 90 days. Then the next quarter we measure how we did on those rocks or initiatives,
yeah,
and that works great. And we talk about those initiatives in our monthly. We have my business partner and I have a weekly level 10 meeting, and we talk about initiatives. So you've got the lockdown, like things you need to do that you've named in the
hmm,
business that you need to do to keep things moving forward. It could be in your marketing department. These are things that we got to do to keep things moving forward in the quarter. And so um, we have pods that work in the company that are leaders of different functions. So it's like we have a pod for creative, or we have a pod by customer, I should say, not by department. But in those pods are different functions. And so any pod can come up with a initiative for their pod, and it can be it can be big or small. but it's basically a process they want to, or system they want to install that will make their life easier or make the customer's life easier. That goes on a friction list in Asana. And that friction list we look at weekly in our level 10 meeting, and things get budgeted into a approved or backlog in the friction list. And for example, one of the things that came up this month was some way to automate social ad inspection, because what happens when you put a social ad somewhere, you have to check the copy, you have to check the tracking on it, you have to check the image, you have to check all these things. Well, that all can be automated now. So one of the social guys in the pod said, I'd like to try to create something that does that, so I don't have to do it across 100 ads. So like, that's a great idea. That goes on the friction list. We look at it and then we budget it into an initiative. Once it's approved as an initiative, it gets a team. And on that team is an AI engineer who can build the thing. If it is an AI function, it could just be something else. But then we assign a product owner to each initiative in the company. And so that product owner literally owns the product. And they have a budget, they have a timeline, they have a brief. And there's a whole briefing process that we use. And that way, all of this psychosis that you get into when you're building an AI, it has a gate now that you really can't build stuff here without going through the friction process, getting it budget approved, getting an AI product manager or a systems product manager on it, which can be anyone. That's a floating role. Like, you might be a product manager, you might be a project manager here, but we make you a product manager on a feature. Or you could be a creative that becomes an AI product manager. And then that person guiding that implementation helps root it in the business versus just building, whatever you want to build. So it's been super helpful for us.
Yeah. That kind of discipline does keep from the sprawl that seems to occur once everybody has different ideas and gets them going. So sounds like some
100%.
logical governance. So when people are contacting you and are trying to say, gosh, I need some help figuring out like how to find some ways to get AI that actually ships, like how do you respond to that?
Well, first thing I say is look at the tools you already have. Like, don't build anything, because they're probably not using a tenth of the features in the technology that they currently have embedded in their organizations. This is classic for marketing teams, is they're just not leveraging what they have. If you look at in B2B, we use a lot of intent tools. If you look at tools like HubSpot Breeze, or you look at Sixth Sense or Demand Base or these other things, there's AI embedded in those systems that is like clicking the button sort of AI. So we help them sort of figure out what they have and don't have. But then when they have a need for some new initiative where let's say they don't have something embedded, we go through what's called a blueprint process, where we identify the gaps, turn those gaps into initiatives for them. And then we go through the same exact process. We budget them. We put an owner on our side. We have initiative roadmap to get to the end of the quarter. So it's just exactly the same process that we use internally. It's naming the problem and bounding it by, some structure, a system, basically is how it works.
Okay, got it. And so when companies come to you and they're like, gosh, we need to do some things to make our people better. We need to do some things to make our systems better. We need to do some things to make the way we produce things better. How do you help them organize and categorize all the different ideas that they have so that they can kind of, start to hit the high priority stuff first?
Yeah, priorities. Yeah, because everyone wants to do everything, just like I used to do when I started Mighty and True. But we root it all in outcomes. What is the thing? What's the most high pressure thing that the CMO has on their plate? And if they don't have that solved for across all of their initiatives, we can build some really cool stuff, and we can create some great from a content perspective. Like, you can create a lot of really cool content, but if you don't root it in the outcome that you're after, then your board and your executive team will be like, wow, that's really cool, but did you do this?
Yeah.
So everything has to be rooted in the outcome, and reminding people that if we're going to do something as a team together, we ought to make sure that that outcome that we're going after, that this thing actually does that. It's easy to get
Yeah.
distracted.
I would love to, since you work so much with CMOs, there is this constant ongoing debate about marketing ROI, right? And like, where the hell does marketing ROI come from? And there's that old famous quote about like, I know half my marketing produces results. I'll just be damned if I know which half, right? But this is something that I think we've been talking about as long as my entire career. We've been talking
Yeah.
about this, right? And I don't think we've ever had an answer. So when the dreaded question about marketing ROI comes up for your CMOs, what do you tell them?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, today it is absolutely not marketing qualified leads, or, there's always the push to CMOs are always there to drive revenue in the business. And so the ultimate outcome is going to be pipeline for them. They can't actually sell the thing, but they definitely have to like say that they influenced pipeline. So
Hmm.
whatever measures we have going on and all the things, and if let's say they're creating a new logo or brand element or whatever, as a CMO, to be safe these days, you have to point everything to pipeline. There's no
All
other
right.
metric that's more important than pipeline. There could be some leading indicators that you're doing things, but you have to get things, you have to, at least in the B2B and tech space, you have to point to pipeline. And that's a
Gotcha.
complicated thing because who influences pipeline? Like, who are like, how do you prove that you actually made the pipeline work? Well, that has a lot to do with the interlock that you have with your head of sales and your CEO. If you're working with CEO as a CMO, but you have to get that agreement up front of how pipeline's actually being measured and the uh, the metrics that you funnel down to get there. And that's the most important thing, and it's uncomfortable, I think, for a lot of CMOs because they're on such a hot seat these days. It's
Yeah.
uncomfortable to have a relationship with the CFO and ask them about pipeline attribution or the CRO or the board, but that very uncomfortable conversation is what needs to happen to keep your job.
Yeah. And it's interesting because to me, especially in tech, it comes down to there's a couple different ways in which pipeline happens, right? Like, so there's a bunch of tech that you buy without ever talking to a human being, right? So like if I want to go get an account on Box or, pick up Airtable or N8N or something else, I'm not calling a salesperson, right? I just like sign up on the site and I go. Whereas if it's like semiconductor chips that are some kind of engineered product, like there is no transact over the site. Like if I'm Apple and I want like a new chip I can get the samples, sure, from like Texas Instruments or somebody else, but I can't get my chip the way that I want it from my next iPhone unless I'm dealing with a whole sales engineering team, right? So tech has a wide range of human interactions in its sales pipeline is I guess my question. So to me, it's like when you're in those transactional products, it's all about the CMO, right? Because
Yeah,
it's all site transaction, right? And when
100%.
you're in the semiconductor space, it's can I influence pipe to get to the sales engineers, right? And can I get those guys to start talking? So yeah, I think it is a little bit of a tricky thing.
Yeah,
One
and
thing that
B2B,
I would
that's
say that
what's so
is,
fun. That's what's so fun about the B2B space is you do have both those dynamics, and they're so different. It's just a fun,
yeah,
it's so much more because I was at Omnicom and worked on the consumer side, which it has its own benefits, but it just doesn't have the complexity that is in B2B and tech. It's just a rich environment to be working in.
it is. It is. Because, I think when it comes to tech sales, I always think of that. What is I can't think of his name. Kenny Rogers, his old song, The Gambler, because every hand's a winner and every hand's a loser, right? And that like every op's a winner and every op's a loser. And it comes down to like,
100%.
are you a
Yeah.
sales guy who's just not going to die on your feet? Is really the idea. And
True.
so that's definitely the case. You write some pretty fantastic content yourself, which I've seen on the Mighty and True website. And, in your insights column, just to take something that I really liked the other day was, you wrote this thing called Why AI Built Websites Fall Apart after page 2
Yeah.
and the system that fixes it. I thought that was pretty great because you actually have on there like all of the prompts and like everything that somebody would need to be successful. And so, you seem to come from this side of if I just put all my content out there, some people will use it and that's great. And some people are going to call me. And I'm just, I would love to hear a little bit about your approach to when you write your content and like how much you share and is this an example of the kind of stuff that you typically do, or is this an experiment for you?
Yeah, I think gating is really, I mean, it's not entirely dead, but it's definitely over. It's definitely diminished significantly. And the bet, like, think about things you follow. I do the same. I just follow things that offer utility to me. Like I can use the thing. I don't have to. I don't have to. The best content out there are the stuff that adds that utility and value. And increasingly, it's becoming tools, systems, frameworks, applications, things you can get at without having to be gated in some way. So I at that that's kind of what I like. I'm just a I'm just a builder and a sharer to begin with. So my style is to just build the thing and then tell people about it. And then if people will figure out how that, if they come to Mighty and True and, see that, they might, figure out that they can use this in some way. But that's just my philosophy. Because I just don't think gating is, I mean, how many times I've downloaded, like I hate when I download something and then you get the PDF thing and then it's not what you thought it was going to be. And you're like, dang it, why did I do, it's not
Yeah.
good enough. So it takes the pressure off too of gating stuff. I mentioned the Substack thing. And when you do a Substack, it always asks you to do the subscription, like only give so much content on my builders series thing. It said after the fourth one, it wanted me to gate it to only subscribers. I'm like, I'm not going to do that. This is good content. And eventually people will just find the thing. So I think that's great. The other opportunity nowadays is you can create, I think the idea of content, I've always wanted to do this, but didn't have the scale and technology in place. But using your own data as a way to build unique applications or insights that you couldn't get anywhere else. Like, for example, um, we track search performance. We know we have a bunch of search customers, and so we get data from those search customers. We would never show any of that search data of a customer to like an individual customer, but we know some benchmarks and stuff across the tech industry. And then there's public sources where you can get search data, benchmark data, and a few of them paid. Like we use a tool called Data for SEO to get search data off the web. It's really good. It's really built for an API use. So we built tools that we basically give away that allow people on the internet to use those tools in unique ways. We built this one site called the Brand Games. So it's brandgames.mightyentry.com, which basically takes the top 50 brands and it scores them on how they're performing in the market based on some proxies for search, like how they show up in branded search, how they show up in the main terms for their brand, and how their keywords are ranking. And you could charge for something like that. It's probably not worth much because you could get that through other paid tools. But using data as a way to provide value to a customer and then building it into an application like that, I think there's a huge opportunity for that in content. Because a lot of these companies that we work with, they spin off a lot of data. They could use their own data to create these utilities. And so you could go to Brand Games and you could score your own brand, or you can go to mightyentry.com and it'll allow you to score your own brand against that same rubric. And it's just a fun way to produce unique content.
Yeah, I just I pulled it up while we were
Yeah,
here, and it's awesome. I mean, this is really cool. Like how you
my
can,
thought is,
um,
Kalshi. Have you ever gone to Kalshi.com,
sure,
the betting site?
yeah,
I think
yep,
my thought is that there's this is like a kind of like a Kalshi for tech firms. And you can eventually we could do a bunch with it, but it's spinning off a lot of great data, benchmark data too, like watching how these brands are scoring over time. And then to score your own brand is a real simple way to get a score. It's fun, and
yeah.
it didn't take long to build, and it's using some of our unique data, and it's providing some fun utility to people They can see that we can create these type of these applications for them. Kind of a fun way to give back
It's
to
a great
the
way
tech community.
to establish your authority with utility, and yeah, it definitely is a really cool idea. I didn't even know about this, and I'd spent a lot of time on your site.
Yeah.
So, well, all right. So I realized we're running out of time, and I wanted to ask you just like one last question about your own content, and that is, I mean, you're a podcaster, you write things, you've got Substack, plus you're running your company, and I just wanted to know, like, how do you prioritize your content relative to all the other things that you do? What's your secret?
Yeah. Oh gosh, it's so tough. It's because if I could do anything, I would just write and create stuff. It's the best. But we have, David, you and I have actual businesses. Our business is not writing and creating stuff, although to some degree it is. But um, it is always a struggle. I think the best thing that I did to give me the time to do this stuff is I read Rocket Fuel and got an amazing integrator, and we settled into both our roles. And in the CEO role, the thing that I struggle with is I always want to get back in the business to do the things because I like to build stuff. I like being with clients and all that stuff. But when you're a CEO, your primary responsibility is the brand of the company and making sure the brand's known and making sure that you're setting the vision both for the company and also for the market, helping the market understand what you do. And so I see it as part of my core responsibility to be out there like talking about this stuff because I'm passionate about it and I can help other people. And so part of it is that system that we built a few years ago of EOS, eMyth, integrator, visionary to give me the time, not just the time, but the responsibility to be creating this stuff for the company because no one else is going to do it. And I don't think anyone else can do it in the company. I'm the one to carry that voice forward. So it is tough to always find the time, but it's part of my job.
How many hours a week do you say you're spending like producing, editing, creating content?
Well, I need a really good podcast editor. That's the main thing because that's the most thing. But for my podcast, but I've finally got an amazing person internally that's doing like the scheduling and all that stuff. That was taking a long time. I would say maybe out of a week, maybe a day out of a week.
Okay, it's about
Could be
20% of your
more.
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I know producer Lee is licking his chops here in what you just said, and I would give him a great endorsement. Producer Lee is pretty amazing for Content
I might
Kingdom.
need
So,
that number.
all right, sounds good. Well, Kevin, speaking of numbers, certainly people can go to mightyandtrue.com. They can go to brandgames.mightyandtrue.com, which is what I just showed on screen briefly. Where else can people go to learn about you? What's your Substack, and where can people engage with you?
Yeah, thanks, David. LinkedIn is great. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. I haven't been over the last couple weeks. I've been working on a big project, but I put most of my content there. I put all my content there, even the stuff I do on Substack. Substack is you search for Kevin Kerner on Substack, and you'll find me. There's a lot of good. I usually use Substack as the adjacent sort of different take on things from the podcast and from all the people I talk to. So Substack's a great way to go to get kind of the alternative version of things.
Got it.
And that's pretty
And
much
the
it.
name
And
of
then
your
the Mighty True
podcast
blog and
is
yeah. On my
what's the name?
podcast. Sorry, my
Yeah.
podcast is Tech Marketing Rewired, and we've taken a little pause, but we're about ready to relaunch it. We're also doing some Rewired dinners. We did one here in Austin last week, and then we're doing San Jose next, and then Boston. It's basically where we invite tech CMOs to talk together about all this crazy rewiring that's happening in the world these days.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, great. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for being a guest on Content Kingdom. Really appreciate everything that we got a chance to talk about today, and look forward to hanging out with you soon since we both live in Austin.
Yeah, definitely great to do it, David. Thank you so much.
Spring, fall, winter, summer. Which one's your favorite?
Man, I like all of them. Probably spring.
Okay. What's your favorite activity to do in the spring?
I love to camp, hiking and camping.
And you have a bunch of kids too, right?
I have 8 kids, which means I can't take them all with me. So I usually do a backpacking trip or hiking trip with my friends. or fishing, and then I'll do one. And then right after that, I'll need to do one with the kids because they'd look at me like, why did you go?
Wine, beer, whiskey, coffee, or tea?
I'm going to have to go beer. I love the taste of beer. I like hazy IPAs. So I can only drink one, though, or maybe two, and then I feel terrible afterwards.
What is your favorite state other than your home state?
North Carolina. I grew up as a kid in North Carolina, in Hendersonville, North Carolina, in the Appalachians.
Okay.
And it was beautiful.
Right. What is your favorite country outside your home country?
Gosh, I would say Mexico. I love Mexico. People are great. I love the culture there. It's beautiful, really beautiful.
Are you a do-it-yourself DIY kind of guy or hire someone for me?
I'm a DIY for sure. I'm even a rigger. I am a world famous rigger. I can rig anything to make it work. Probably just cheap. I like to do it all myself.